because we're going to be studying more closely the book of Daniel, let's just pause for a moment and understand how the book of Daniel is put together before we actually dive in and begin to look at more detailed aspects of the book. So the general structure of the book of Daniel is that it is written in two languages. One is Aramaic and the other language is Hebrew. The other characteristic of the book of Daniel is that the Aramaic section of the book contains stories that, although they are all prophetic in that they all point to end-time events, they are a typology of end-time events and end-time characters. They're pretty straightforward, and although deep and beautiful, they do not require much let's say, scholastic or theological training in order to be able to get a good understanding of what is being described. Now, this is not true of the other section of the book of Daniel, which is written in Hebrew. So Hebrew was a more scholarly language. Aramaic was the language of the people. Aramaic was very widespread. Everyone spoke Aramaic in Jesus' times, and in fact, Jesus also spoke Aramaic. Hebrew, of course, Jesus also spoke Hebrew, but Hebrew was a more scholarly, more elitist language reserved for the higher classes and the priests in particular. So how is the book of Daniel split up into these two languages? Well, we have chapter 1, which is written in Hebrew, which serves as an introduction to both the Aramaic section of the book as well as the Hebrew section of the book. Then chapters 2 through chapter 7 function as a whole. This is the part that is written in Aramaic, and it contains all the stories. And then finally, chapters 8 through 12 are the more complex, more intricate part of the book of Daniel, written in Hebrew. And it does require a little bit more study and more digging and actually more inspiration, more Holy Spirit leading in order to be able to decipher correctly this part of the book of Daniel. So we have chapter 1 being an introduction to both books, and it's interesting that chapter 1 has a very simple, if you will, storyline, which matches and introduces the stories in chapters 2 through 7, but at the same time, chapter 1 has a much deeper layer of meaning. It contains very important clues that will enable us to better understand the Hebrew portion of the book of Daniel, and it has some very specific guidance as well as to what is the basic requirement in order to understand the section that is written in Hebrew. So that's the basic structure of the book of Daniel. And what I want to share with you now is that Daniel wrote this book very, very carefully, obviously not of himself, but by the inspiration and guidance of the Holy Spirit. Daniel rewrote and restructured this book several times. Everything in this book is very, very carefully placed and expressed and structured.